It is no secret that the Toronto Blue Jays recipe this season has not worked, as their offense has been an absolute disaster. And following a really brutal loss a couple days ago, Kevin Gausman spoke out and called out some of the Jays superstars. We're going to break down those comments and discuss exactly what he said on this episode. As well, we're also going to discuss how over the next few weeks, this is crucial for the Toronto Blue Jays, as it doesn't only determine how they're going to do the rest of the year, but it also determines their future well beyond this season. So we're going to break all that down and much more on this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm Gosse, your host of Jays Digest, and we have a lot to go over today. There's a lot to discuss, but before we do, quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. We're producing daily Jays content. We're streaming multiple times a week, so this is the spot to be if you want the latest Toronto Blue Jays news. But without further ado, let's dive into it today. And obviously, the Jays got a big win yesterday against the Cleveland Guardians, and they hope today in the afternoon game with José Berríos, their ace, on the hill to get a big win to help them, going forward. But before that, we're going to discuss some crazy comments from Kevin Gausman. Now, this was a couple days ago after Game 1 loss against the Cleveland Guardians, and he basically called out the Toronto Blue Jays offense and their superstars. You can see here, it kind of blew up. Kevin Gausman was pretty straightforward on the Blue Jays' struggles offensively a couple days ago. If we don't pitch well, we probably lose. And I'm going to dive into the exact comments. But before I do, if you remember a week or two ago, following a Chris Bassitt loss where the offense mustered only 1 or 2 runs, Chris Bassitt came out and basically said the exact same thing. He said, listen, it's not for a lack of effort. The Toronto Blue Jays, the offense, the guys are trying, but we feel as a pitching staff, we have to be absolutely perfect every single game if we want a chance to be competitive and win. And that is the unfortunate reality for the Toronto Blue Jays this season. Is their rotation last year was one of the best, if not the best, in baseball. And this year it hasn't been quite as good, but it's still been really, really good. And the Jays should have a better record than 34-36 if their offense was able to muster half of what they did last year. Even last year where their offense was still down. You have guys like George Springer, who's been horrible, Justin Turner, who's been horrible, Kevin Bichette for a while, who was horrible. Like a lot of guys that haven't been able to produce. Kevin Kiermaier, for example, as well, haven't been producing. And what that ends up happening is that the pitching staff needs to be perfect every night. If the Jays go down 2 or 3 runs early on in the game, most of us Jays fans are thinking, oh, wow, it's over. Like, that's the feeling that we get. And if you rewind back to 2021, the feeling was, oh, this is easy. This offense is incredible. Even 2022, the offense is great. We can come back from this 3-0 loss or deficit. Now, when that happens, it is almost an automatic loss for the Toronto Blue Jays. At least that's the feeling that the fans have, and it's also the feeling that the pitchers have as well. And here's the full quote. As much as you try to block it out, it's really hard to. The reality is, if we don't pitch well, we probably lose. We've got to be really good. That's not to say we have a lack of effort, but right now, offensively, we're struggling. Defensively, as pitchers, we need to be better. We almost have to be perfect. It's tough. It adds some pressure, but we're in the big leagues, and you have pressure every single day. Every game is pressure. It doesn't add any more to it, but that's just the reality of the situation we're in. And this was from Keegan Matheson, and he asked Kevin Gausman directly about the Blue Jays' struggling offense and whether that adds pressure to the pitching staff. And obviously it does. When you're going out there every day and you're thinking, okay, if I give up 1 or 2 runs, there's a chance that I lose the game and I get the L on my stat column. And whether the players and the pitchers actually care about whether they get wins or L's on the column, probably not. But they want the team to win. And having that pressure of giving up 1 solo home run in the 8th inning, when it's a 0-0 game, you're like, wow, the game is over from 1 run. Like, we've seen that so many times this year where the offense is completely quiet. It happened in Kevin Gausman's start in Game 1 of the series 2 days ago. The Jays mustered up 3 hits. Kevin Gausman went 5 innings, 8 hits, 3 earned runs. But not his best start, but usually 3 earned runs over 5 innings. You're probably in the game and being competitive. And the Jays lost 3-1, so they were technically competitive, but it just feels like they're out of it when these things happen. And I don't blame him at all. Chris Bassitt said the exact same thing, just less in depth. Like, it's adding more pressure to the pitching staff. Yes, the offense needs to be better. The superstars aren't performing. George Springer will be the first to tell you that he's not performing. And after Friday's loss to Cleveland, Schneider said the Blue Jays would keep exploring ways to do more pitches in the middle of the zone. So what exactly does that look like? That was obviously got the win yesterday, so that's a good sign. But the point is, the offense, at some point, it's just them not being able to perform it. Whether that's George Springer having a fall off because of his age and because of how many years he's played in the MLB, whether that's Justin Turner being 39 years old, Kevin Kiermaier being 34 years old. Like, a lot of guys that the Jays were relying on, yes, they were relying on Bichette and Vladdy to bounce back, but they're also relying on a bunch of veteran, older players to help carry an offense that has not been able to be good, especially when Bichette's been lackluster as well. You couldn't afford one player on the Toronto Blue Jays to underperform this season, given the additions that they made. They did not make any big splashes. They didn't go out and get Teoscar Hernandez. They didn't go out and get any of these big name guys, Shohei Ohtani, obviously, or trade for Juan Soto, or trade for Corbin Burns like the Orioles did. Granted, the Jays wouldn't have wanted to trade for Corbin Burns. So the point is, all these other teams made big additions, and the Jays could have no room for error. And in a season where Bo Bichette and some of the other guys are underperforming, that room for error is showing up in this way, as the pitching staff is now starting to get frustrated, and it adds more pressure. And that probably lends to the fact that they're not pitching quite as well because they have to pitch with all this pressure. So let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on the Kevin Gausman comments. Very interesting. And I just wanted to dive into it a little bit before hopefully the Jays get a big win this afternoon. But looking forward now, how important this is for the Jays. I mean, you lost the first game 3-1. You won yesterday 5-0. Today is the bigger game. Happy Father's Day as well to all the fathers who are watching the video. Hopefully, if you're watching, shout out to you guys. You're the best. If you're a son, go wish your father happy Father's Day and all those things. Maybe watch a Blue Jays game with them. But it's a very big, important game for the Jays. If they win this one, they take the series against the Guardians, and then they move on with some momentum against the Red Sox, still playing at home before they face the Guardians and then the Red Sox again. This is a very crucial game for the Jays. Not only does it put them one game below 500 with a chance to go 500 against a very much worse Red Sox team, very much worse, but if they can win this big stretch of games, and I spoke about it in the stream yesterday, these stretches of games are going to determine the rest of the month whether the Jays are buyers and sellers. And usually games this early on in the season don't matter as much, don't matter this much. We've heard all the classic, quotes, Mike Wilner, all these guys, these radio analysts saying, it's still early. Right now for the Blue Jays, it's not early anymore because this is going to impact how their future goes. If they tank and they fall out, they might look to trade Bo Bichette, which will impact their future going forward. If they start to play better, they're probably going to go the other direction, do a complete 180, and actually buy at the deadline. So this upcoming stretch of games is the most crucial in recent memory for the Toronto Blue Jays. By far the biggest stretch of games of the series, and really the biggest stretch of games in a couple years aside from the playoffs, simply because the core is running out. Danny Jansen's going to be a UFA after next year. So is Vladdy. So is Bo Bichette. These contracts need to be done. Kikuchi's on the last year of his deal. Jimmy Garcia's on the last year of his deal. There's no more time to wait for the Toronto Blue Jays, and you can't just stay in the middle anymore. This is it. This is literally it for the Toronto Blue Jays, and whatever happens over the next couple weeks is going to determine how they do going forward after this year. And right now, they're 2 games back of 500. They're at 4th in the AL East. They have a chance to take over the Red Sox, assuming they win today and they go and do it tomorrow. And it's time for the hitters to wake up, and quite frankly, it's time for the Blue Jays to go on a bit of a run. They haven't went on a big winning streak this season. This is the time to do it. June is the time, and if they aren't able to, then it might be wraps for this core and for the Toronto Blue Jays, not necessarily playoff hopes this season, but a big punch to the gut if they can at least muster a few series wins in a row. And really what the Jays need to do is go out and win 5, 6, 7, 8 games in a row. Get yourself comfortably over 500 and then make a real push for that 3rd wildcard spot. But let me know down in the comments below what your thoughts are on all of this, and make sure to hit the subscribe button. If you want to check out a video, make sure to click your screen now. See you tomorrow.